So a couple of years ago, I was kicked out of the US. No fault of my own. It's just that the US gives out work visas based on a lottery. And turns out I was not lucky enough to win the lottery that year. I first came to the US way back in 2013. I did the right things, worked hard, studied hard, and eventually got what was my dream job at the time. But now I have to leave all of that behind. But it's not all over though. My employer at the time offered to apply for my visa again the next year. And if that went through, I could come back in 10 months. So to completely avoid having to deal with the fact that my entire life has just been turned upside down, I chose to believe that I'm going to 100% get the visa next year, and I'm absolutely coming back. I'm not losing the visa lottery twice, 2 years in a row. So to fill this 10-month gap, I took a random job in a country in the Middle East. It's called Qatar. And I even timed my start date so that I would still be in my probation window when it's time to quit and come back to the US. It's just easier to quit when you're on probation. You just have to give a week's notice. So between the US and Qatar, I spent some time with my parents in India. The Australian Open Tennis Championship was going on at the time, and I grew up watching a lot of tennis. And one thing you have to know about me is I'm one of the biggest Roger Federer fans on the planet. Back then, it was difficult being a Federer fan. He hadn't won anything in a while. He was old, he was hurt. No one was giving him any chance in this tournament, but he takes everyone by surprise, including himself, and then the next thing you know, he's in the finals. He then goes on to play what I consider is the greatest game that he's ever played. He beats his greatest rival, Nadal. It goes to full 5 sets. He wins the Australian Open, his 18th Grand Slam championship, his first in 5 years. Seeing him win that, you can clearly see it on TV. He's emotional, he's ecstatic. Seeing my hero like that made me go emotional, and I'm ecstatic. And I'm not even the type to be soft. I don't have many heroes. I'm a Gemini. My ego doesn't allow me to put anybody up on a pedestal like that. But seeing him like that, it made me emotional, and I was super happy, glad for him. And you know what they say about making decisions when you're too happy, right? I made one of those decisions. I decided to tick off what's been number one on my bucket list for as long as I can remember, and that is to watch Roger Federer play on center court in Wimbledon. Wimbledon is another Grand Slam event. It takes place in London. It's a tournament rooted in history and culture and tradition and all the snobbish things that the British are known for. And I wanted to be there that year because he's getting old. I don't know how long he's going to play. So in the next couple of months, a few things happen. My employer in the US applies for my visa. I go to Qatar to start this job, a job that I think I'm going to quit in 6 months. And from the moment I get there, I'm just waiting to leave. I'm just anxious about the visa. 2 agonizing months go by. I keep waiting. June eventually comes around, and I learned that I don't get the visa again. Second time in a year, unlucky. Now, I had a Pinterest board for all the things that I wanted to buy for my apartment when I came back to the US. Do I really look like a guy who has Pinterest boards for anything? And I even had this accent. Now, I don't talk like this when I talk to my Indian friends. This is an accent. So what do I do with my accent? I don't know now. So dealing with all of that is like working through 7 stages of grief. I'm not going back. But I had to make another decision. I still haven't purchased tickets for Wimbledon. It's right around the corner. And turns out Wimbledon is a very expensive tournament to see. The tickets alone would cost me $2,000, which was a large sum of money to me at that point. And given the situation I found myself in, it did not make any sense to do it, which is why I decided to do that. This was my big screw you universe. You can take my American dream away from me, but you cannot stop me from going to Wimbledon and seeing my hero play on center court. It's going to be a perfect weekend. So a couple of weeks roll by. It's time to go to London. I pack my nicest suit because you have to be proper. And I go to London. I check into my hotel. I open my suitcase, and I realize my suit is crumbled, which is completely unacceptable for me because I have to look good on that day. This is going to be a perfect weekend. So I try to find the nearest dry cleaner around, and to my surprise, on a Saturday evening, there's no dry cleaner open in the city of London. Now, I don't know about the UK, but people work hard in the US. So the nearest dry cleaner that I found was in some random suburb. I went there, I dropped my suit off, and then I also bought a new tie and a new pocket square, even though what I had brought with me is completely fine. I'm clearly overcompensating at this point. So Monday rolls around, I get dressed up, I think I look nice, and I head to Wimbledon. And once I get there, I'm just walking through, taking it all in. I take a few pictures, put it on social media because I have to let everybody know that I'm there. And soon it's time for the game, so I go to the center court. I sit in my seats, which was like right in the middle. So, and the players walk in after a couple of minutes warm up. It's love all, and here we go. I don't remember much from the match at all. It was one big blur. It was just under 2 hours. All I remember is that while the match was being played, my head and everybody else's head around my section was doing this. And in some points, my head would just do this because I wanted to watch how Federer moved, whereas everybody else was doing that. And after every point, this whole stadium would erupt in this huge, thunderous applause, which would last for precisely 5 to 10 seconds, and it would come to a pin drop silence before the next point began. Other than that, all I remember is being in complete shock that I am here and that I am getting to do this. It only starts to slowly sink in on my way back to the city in the tube that the magnitude of what I had witnessed. This is such a big moment for me. I'm going to remember this in my deathbed. And that's when I realized that I felt very unfortunate at that point, but I am very lucky to be there. Most people don't get to see their heroes in their biggest stage like that. I shouldn't be too hung up on not being able to go back to the US. I have to move on. I have to have confidence in what I have. So I put out a post on social media and I wrote, no matter where I go and what I do, I've seen my hero play on center court in Wimbledon, and I'll always be fortunate for that. And I head back to Doha. Roger Federer goes on to win Wimbledon that year. I would like to think I played a part in that. And my life in Qatar starts to pan out, and in a few months, I realized that the project that I was working on is starting to focus more on the US. And I was then asked to move here, something that was not planned at all. And now I know what you're thinking, what about the visa this time, right? Well, it turns out the lottery does not apply when you're transferring between the same company from one country to another. So here I am in New York, telling my story in front of everybody. Roger Federer is still playing. He now has 20 Grand Slam titles. He's going to be here next month for the US Open, and I'm thinking about buying tickets to go see him play. Thank you.